Welcome to RPG Book Club, the podcast where we play a little bit of a video game and talk about how it makes us feel. I am Sam Allman.
I'm David Bernard Hauk.
I'm sad, but it's not because of the video game. I'm Matty Grace Webben.
And you, Sam? Who are you?
Introduce myself this time? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Last time you introduced me, so I wasn't... Anyway.
Yeah, now you're old news.
Yeah.
Cool. I am also Sam, the game professor, the other Sam.
Nice. And today we will be discussing the remainder of the Midgar section of Final Fantasy VII. As a reminder, we sell out hard and play super popular games so that we can get eyes on the podcast and eyes on our polls to choose our next game. And our next poll is between Skies of Arcadia and Paper Mario, which are Bernard's auto by RPGs. So head on over to www.rpgbook.club and vote on our next game. And while you do that, how is everyone's week?
Well, we also sell out because, you know, sometimes we really want to play Chrono Trigger or Final Fantasy VII because they're good games.
The thing is, we try to play stuff off the beaten path, but sometimes stuff on the beaten path is fucking bangers. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's a combination of this is our format and we're sticking to it, and we got to give people time to vote on shit. And also, we want to sell out and get some better fucking like SEO or whatever. But also, yeah, sometimes they're just fucking bangers, and it's okay to play some bangers.
Hell yeah.
Anyway, my week, I didn't say much last time because I didn't feel like it, but I will this time. My life's been through an absolutely it's not actually that much, but my life's been through an absolutely insane maelstrom that I won't go into. It's mostly, again, relationship type shit and emotions and shit. And even though I mentioned that I was crying, it was because of something very minor that happened that just got, you know, sometimes you just get sad and you got to like get it out, and then once you get it out, you're done, and you're like, cool, good now. That's all it was. It was like half an hour ago, right? Anyway, what's up?
Oh no, just the realization that it was that recent.
Oh yeah. It was like just some minor thing happened like a half hour ago that I got sad about. It got my emotions in a tussle, right? Anyway, but no, other than that, my week's been fucking crazy. So here's the thing. As I was mentioning off recording, I went off Twitter last week, and you might think, oh, because of all the crazy shit's happening with Twitter with Elon Musk. No, I was already wanting to go off Twitter because, not like because it's bad for me. A lot of people say like, oh, the health site is so bad for mental health. I have a good set of followings. Like I follow good people. Most of my timeline is not insufferable discourse about stupid bullshit. It's like good, interesting discussion of important things, but I just realized that I didn't have the mental energy to give a shit about any of it. It's like, oh, some people on my timeline are having a deep, everyone on my timeline is having some complex discussion about like fucking NYC electoral strategy. That's interesting intellectually, but I'm not here for it right now. I don't give a shit. So, right? But then Elon Musk fucking bought Twitter. And I was about to get off Twitter, but then Elon Musk bought Twitter and everyone was like, oh, we're getting off Twitter now. And then I was like that little penguin where I'm like, well, now I'm not going to do it. Because I didn't want it to look like I was doing it for that reason. But anyway, no, I started driving the big truck last week, and I decided I was going to delete Twitter off my phone. Not to deactivate my account, but delete it off my phone because I'm going to be driving the truck and didn't need any distractions. So I did. And it turned out it was the worst possible week to get off Twitter because it's been fucking hilarious. Every day I get home from work and my girlfriend gives me an update of the insane shit that happened on Twitter that day. Oh, they added a second different kind of verification. Oh, they got rid of it. Oh, they put it back. Oh, now like Doja Cat was stuck being Christmas, but now she's Elon Musk. And I'm like, every day I'm like, you've got to be making this up. What the fuck are you talking about? No. And it's the craziest shit. But it honestly, like, I would not have possibly been able to focus on my very important fucking job if I had Twitter this week. So like, oh god, it rules. No, it's awesome. I think everything is extremely cool and great. Greatest week in the history of the internet. At least it's up there. But yeah, it turns out I'm really good at driving the truck is the thing. I won't go into it, but basically you have a certain score, and during your probation period, you have to get your score, which is essentially like, how fast did you complete the work based on how long we said that it should have taken you, sort of like, did you meet par, essentially? And you have 30 work days to pretty much hit par. And I I really kicked ass on my 4th day on Friday, and my score, when I found out what it was, my own jaw hit the floor at how good it was, because I know what a good number is, and was absolutely shocked that I had gotten that good of a number that early on. The next day, workday doesn't count, because on Saturdays your route's different, so it's kind of a wash, so that doesn't matter. So yeah, I'm really enjoying driving the big UPS truck. It fucking rules. And then on Sunday, I pretty much led a East Bay DSA general meeting pretty much single-handedly, because the co-chair is taking a break, so I'm stepping in to kind of fill in his shoes. We do have another co-chair, but for reasons that I won't go into, this was sort of more my bag than it was hers. Like, no shade on her, it's just that this has happened to be more my bag this time around, so I was the one who pretty much conceived of, designed, organized, planned, and then made sure to check the night before that everything was settled, and then also ran the meeting pretty much in its entirety from start to finish. And it was terrifying, and it was fucking awesome, and a couple people I really respect told me I did a great job. So that's all I need, right? Is some validation in the world. And now today, every single grad student worker in the University of California system, about 48,000 people, are all on strike. So, and I've been preparing for that as well, and I did that earlier today, and now I'm recording a podcast. So life is fucking crazy, but in a good way. And finally, Sonic Frontiers. It's like, okay, I promise I'm not saying this to make Sam mad. This was a thought that I thought of yesterday for actual game design reasons. Genuinely, I'm not just doing it as a troll. It's like, I was playing the game and I'm like, I used my Tim Rogers voice, and I was like, what if Banjo-Kazooie was good? But also was Death Stranding.
Yes.
Anyway, it's a fucking masterpiece. It rules. I love it. I am way too busy to play much of it, but I'm really hoping I can get in like an hour after we're done podcasting tonight or something like that. That's my week.
Yeah, I played like an hour of Sonic Frontiers yesterday, and yeah, it rules. I love it.
Yeah, I forgot
Sonic's dumb voice.
Yeah, I don't want to be negative about a person who's doing his job, but I've never been a fan of that voice.
Well, it's even weirder too. It's like the voice directing's different too. It's the normal boom voice, but it's like lower. It's weird, but also it's not a big deal because the game is thankfully largely quiet.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
I missed so on GameFly you have to if you call dibs on a game, you have to call dibs on it 30 days before it comes out, and I forgot to do that. So now I have to fight the queue, and so I'm putting in the current game we have right now, putting it in the mail tomorrow, and hopefully I get Sonic. If I don't get Sonic, hopefully I get Bratz, and if I don't get Bratz, hopefully I get Little Nightmares 2. Wait, I'm sorry, I need context for that. What? Bratz, the first new Bratz game since the PlayStation 2 came out. Like the dolls?
They made a new Bratz game?
Yeah, it looks fucking good. Yeah.
That's great. The old ones were kind of based, low-key.
Yeah, okay, I'm very confused now. Do I need to go back and play some licensed doll games?
True. The Bratz ones are pretty good if you're like into them. I like the Game Boy Advance ones a little more than the PS2 ones. But if you are going to go back and play a single licensed doll game, you need to play the Wii U version of Monster High New Ghoul in School, because it's a Persona clone, and it's fantastic. You do mini games and doll stuff instead of turn-based stuff, but like you go to school, you go to all your classes, you have stats, you do Persona things at Monster High, and it whips. Like, unironically, it's really good.
I didn't know about that one.
Yeah, that one was one that when I hacked my Wii U, I was like, I'll put this on here for Scarlet, and then I played the whole game. But yeah, so speaking of Scarlet, so I've been talking to this new person who is a child development neurologist type person, and
a smart person.
Oh yeah, a really smart person, and they gave me a just because it's fun and they like to do it, a free consultation on how to get Scarlett to leave me alone and go to bed. And it's been wonderful. Scarlett leaves me alone and goes to bed. And instead of it being a thing until like 11 o'clock, and then I'm like, I carve out time for myself after she finally goes to bed, and I watch like half an episode of TV and I fall before I fall asleep. Yesterday, she was in bed on time at 8 o'clock, and I had 5 hours before my bedtime
Let's
to
fucking
just
go.
do whatever. And it
That's
was
great.
amazing. I highly recommend dating smart people that you can get their smart stuff for free, because the medical system is broken, and there was no way I would be able to take her in for a consultation myself.
You know, normally I recommend never dating anybody who's ever been to grad school, but that's a pretty good counter argument.
Yeah. And also, like, as a side note, I'm giddy as a motherfucker. Like, I'm having a great connection with this person, which is just awesome. But framing it in the way of I got something for free, that's what I'm all about. So I got a free child behavior assessment.
Nice.
I just find it funny that your daughter is named Scarlett, because we're going to be talking about Scarlett a lot coming up soon, I think, in the Final Fantasy VII. So it's...
And that would be a great segue, except we have 2 more people to talk to.
Yeah, honestly, when you said speaking of Scarlett, I was like, oh, are we talking about it already? I didn't even go.
No. The little one. Bernard, how was your week?
My week was pretty good. So for months, I have had no dates, and I had 2 dates this past week,
Hell yeah.
Let's fucking go.
and they were nice. That's all.
Love to have dates.
Also, some exciting stuff is probably happening in my life that I don't want to talk about yet.
It's very exciting.
All right.
Also, I'm sad because Twitter is probably going to break, and I love Twitter.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. Every time some shit happens with Twitter the last couple of years, there's always that big thing where everyone's like, oh my god, they changed something about Twitter. There's some big new change, like new ownership or some new direction. This is it for Twitter. Let's all jump on Mastodon for 1 week, and then after a week we get bored and come back to Twitter. And I'm always like, guys, who cares? But here's the thing. Whenever people talk about how someone's going to ruin Twitter, what they always mean is they're going to make it bad. It's going to be worse. The experience is going to get shittier. There's going to be a lot more just like fucking like fascists all over the website or whatever. What I never really thought about was with Elon Musk, I was like, oh, this is going to be the same thing as always. It's just, going to be a big kerfuffle, and then it won't matter. But I was thinking too small. I was thinking in the sense of like he's going to ruin Twitter by making it too shitty. I never would have thought, no, he might ruin Twitter by driving the company into bankruptcy, and then Twitter literally stops existing.
I mean, it might...
that was beyond the boundaries of what I would have predicted.
And I mean, it might literally break because, like, he's firing all the engineers.
Yeah. Again, that's all not what I had in mind. So you know what? I might be wrong on this one. Maybe Twitter actually is going to die for real this time, and not in the way that everyone pretends every year.
I think it'll probably break really bad for a while, and the company will be sold for like $50, and then fucking Yahoo will try to rebuild it.
Yeah.
Yo, what if RPG Book Club bought Twitter?
Yes.
That's kind of what I want to happen, is like what happened with Tumblr, where they bought it, fucked it up, and then sold it for way less than they bought it.
Yeah.
But hopefully not ruining it as bad. I don't know.
Meanwhile, I was never really on Twitter, and I used Twitter more like a Tumblr anyways, and I only retweeted things. So I'm back on Tumblr and just am reblogging things. So if you want to find me, that's where I hang out these days, instead of the Twitter that I literally never used. What about you, Sam? How was your week? And even though I didn't ask you about your week last week, so this can also be a several months since last we talked.
Oh gosh, yeah, a while. Well, yeah, my week was God of War Ragnarok mostly, honestly.
Nice.
Oh no, wait, it was God of War Ragnarok and also finishing Yakuza 6. I'm sure I'm not the only person here who loves the Yakuza games, or the only person that anyone here has heard talk about the Yakuza games, but they're fucking incredible. I love them so much. I wish I'd played them earlier. They're definitely one of those worlds I finally started playing them. I was like, oh man, I really should have played this the moment someone recommended them to me.
Yakuza is the greatest game series of all time. I'd love to play them one day.
Have none of you played Yakuza?
I've played Yakuza 0 and some of Yakuza 1 on the PlayStation 2 and some of Yakuza Kiwami. Yakuza 0 is an absolute masterpiece.
Yeah. Yeah, it's one of those where there are definitely better and worse games in the series, but all of the games have the stuff that you love Yakuza for, so even the ones that aren't as good as the others are 1,000% worth playing. It's just very good.
Yeah, I have played the first vertical slice of Yakuza Kiwami to record a JRPG Canon episode on it, and I had it scheduled with the person and everything, but then Summer went to the hospital, and then I never got around to redoing it, and now I don't remember shit about it, and I didn't write notes at the time, so I need to replay it, write my notes, and then record that episode.
Yeah,
it's fantastic.
They're great because they're just JRPGs, except instead of turn-based systems, it's a brawler fighting system. Aside from that, everything about them is JRPG as hell. The structure, the storytelling, everything. They're extremely good. But anyway, yeah, I finished 6, and I don't hear people talk about that one as much, but it might be my favorite so far, honestly. Not the best of them from a technical sense, but possibly my favorite. I loved it a lot. But anyway, yeah, I did those things. I've been working on my Fatal Frame video, because replaying Fatal Frame 2 was great. Love doing that and scaring myself a lot. Let's see. I have a Steam Deck now. I didn't have a Steam Deck last time, when we did Lunar. So that's
nice. Steam Deck rules.
Yeah, no, I love the hell out of it. It's very good.
Yeah. At work, we were throwing out these crappy docks that don't work for what we need them to do at work, but what they do work for is the Steam Deck. So I now have the full switchification of the Steam Deck for my TV in my room, which is beautiful. Nice. I highly recommend.
Yeah,
gamer power plus switchification of the entire living room.
Yeah, I need to get a dock for it so that I can easily just hook it up to a TV or whatever, but even just having I don't know, I've wanted something like this for ages. I have so many indie games and old PC games and stuff that I've just never played that I've had on my list for ages, and now I can play them anywhere. So on a related note, Fallout New Vegas is pretty good.
Pretty good. Yeah. On the same note, Celeste is amazing, and
Celeste is
I highly recommend it. I'm sure no one here has heard of it or played of it or personally told me that I should be playing it ever since it came out. So,
Sam, I love the way you just said, original flavor. The fact that other Sam said Fallout New Vegas and then you said Celeste, you said on another note. To me, it was very funny because you're like, oh, speaking of things that the trans is like.
I was going to say.
Here's the other stereotypical Tran game. The good one, in my opinion.
You haven't played Fallout New Vegas.
I've played enough of it to know that no amount of good writing is going to make Fallout 3 good. That's my opinion on Fallout New Vegas.
You know what? That's pretty fair.
If I wanted good writing, I would simply... If I wanted good writing, but also having to play Fallout 3, I would just read a book and then play Fallout 3. And I would only want to do half of that.
Well, anyway, yeah, my week was okay, so, yep.
Oh, yeah. My week was fantastic because I got to play Final Fantasy VII. And there, towards the end of it, I was looking for a save point to stop, and instead I beat the whole thing because there were no save points for, the last big chunk. So, yeah, I played the crap out of it, and it was great. And so now we're going to play a fair use amount of Final Fantasy VII music and hope we don't get sued, and then talk about the plot.
We got to make sure we comment on it. Wow, that music was shitty. They could have stepped it up.
How dare you
Damn.
insult that song of all songs? That song.
Can't believe that's the song that you played. Actually, I think that's the best song in the entire game.
Well, agree to disagree.
So, Bernard, take it away.
We see President Shinra in his office with two other suits, Heidegger and Reeve. They discuss the plan to drop the Sector 7 plate. Reeve is against it and says the mayor is too. Heidegger is like, fuck you guys, who cares, and leaves. President Shinra tells Reeve to take some time off, then declares his plan to no one in particular. His plan is to destroy Sector 7, then the reports will blame Avalanche, and the heroic relief efforts will be handled by Shinra. So everyone will love Shinra and hate Avalanche, and also they'll get rid of Avalanche and kill everyone. For fun. Cloud, Tifa, and Aerith fall into the sewers. Sewer dungeon. A giant beast shows up and we kick its ass. We go through 2 screens and find a way out of the sewer, so it wasn't much of a sewer dungeon after all. There weren't even any sluices.
At that point, it's really just a sewer-themed hallway.
Yeah.
Yes. The gang finds themselves in the train graveyard, which is like there's a bunch of dead trains there, near the train station to Sector 7. The gang heads through another very short dungeon and arrives at the base of the support pillar. The other members of Avalanche are battling Shinra on the pillar. Wedge, who hasn't been mentioned in the notes yet because he hasn't done or said anything important yet, falls from the top of the pillar to his certain death but is apparently still alive. So, Maddie Grace, there is another instance of someone falling from a great height and living.
There we go. So, in this universe, human bones, just, they got hands.
Good bones.
They must drink lots of milk. Which is totally a real thing.
Yes. Wedge tells Cloud to go help Barrett fight Shinra. Tifa asks Aerith to go to 7th Heaven and take Marlene somewhere safe. Cloud and Tifa head up the pillar. On the way, they find Biggs and Jesse gravely wounded. At the top of the pillar, Cloud and Tifa meet up with Barrett. Reno jumps down from a helicopter and presses a single button on a terminal which sets a bomb in the pillar to self-destruct. The gang fights Reno, who is not very tough. Eventually, Reno bails and the gang tries to disarm the bomb, but it's not working. The helicopter flies back to the tower. A Turk named Sung taunts the gang and tells them the bomb will explode if they touch it. Barrett starts blasting, but Sung's like, be careful, you don't want to hurt our hostage, who is named Aerith. Cloud asks what they're going to do with her. Sung says he doesn't know. The Turks were just ordered to capture the last remaining ancient. Aerith yells that the girl is safe, and Sung fucking slaps her. Not cool. The helicopter flies off, and the pillar starts exploding. The gang finds a very convenient cable that they use to swing all the way from the Sector 7 pillar to the Sector 6 gate. The pillar collapses, and the Sector 7 plate falls, killing everyone in the Sector 7 slums. We see President Shinra watching from Shinra Tower, listening to opera because he's a villain.
The opera here is interesting. It's literally an actual bit of, like, it's an extra from some actual opera. It's the only bit of music in the game that isn't by Nobuo Uematsu. It's not on the game's soundtrack or anything. But I guess they just got the rights to use, like a 10-second fucking clip of some random-ass opera so that they can make the villain be, like, you know, fancy and shit. Actually, I'm going to look up what opera it is because I used to remember. It's not one that I like enough to remember what it is. So I'm going to look it up and tell y'all later. But it's a strange cutscene. It's an FMV.
It's funny to me because that makes sense to do, but also Nobuo Uematsu wrote an entire goddamn opera for the previous Final Fantasy game. Yeah,
because I don't know. That's a trope that's just so common in movies, but I guess in this exact era of games, like, licensed music wasn't, like, a thing that much in games. Certainly didn't start becoming a thing until the PlayStation 1 era, when you had things like Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, you know, or, like, GTA, like, 3, I don't remember if 1 and 2 had licensed music, or, it wasn't until you started having games set in, like, the real world that would have, like, like hip hop or punk rock or something, that you would have licensed music. So this weird little snippet of just actual not video game soundtrack music is, I mean, it's not like any later game does this either. It just stands out as a very odd little thing in my opinion, and I always forget, and then it happens, and I'm surprised.
It's very weird. The gang collects themselves at the park at the Sector 6 gate. Barrett is overcome with grief at his daughter and his comrades dying in the catastrophe. And this is probably the most emotional scene in any JRPG up until this point in history, in my opinion. Tifa tells Barrett that she thinks Marlene is safe, but Biggs, Wedge, and Jesse are gone. Tifa wonders if this is their fault, since Shinra was trying to wipe out Avalanche. Barrett says no, Avalanche didn't do this, Shinra did this, and their fight isn't going to be over until they destroy Shinra. Cloud moseys off. Tifa realizes he must be worried about Aerith and tells Barrett that she asked Aerith to take Marlene to safety. Tifa and Barrett join Cloud and ask if he's going to help Aerith. He says yes, but he needs to know about the Ancients. The screen goes black. An ominous text says, "The blood of the Ancients flows within me. I'm the rightful heir to this planet." That's not Sephiroth's voice. Cloud mutters Sephiroth's name. The gang heads to Aerith's house. Lots of TH''S this week. I don't like it. When they arrive, Elmira immediately knows Cloud is here about Aerith. She says Shinra came for Aerith here. Cloud asks why they're after her. Elmira says it's because Aerith is the sole surviving ancient. Elmira tells the story of how she came to adopt Aerith. 15 years ago, during the war, her husband was dispatched to Wutai. She received a letter saying he was coming home on leave, but he never arrived. She went to the train station every day waiting for him. One day, she found a woman on the ground and a little girl crying over her. The woman told Elmira to take Aerith somewhere safe, then died. Elmira took Aerith into her home, and they bonded quickly. Aerith told Elmira about how she and her mother had escaped from some kind of research laboratory, and her mother had already returned to the planet, so she didn't feel lonely. Elmira asked if she meant somewhere in the sky, but she said no, that it was this planet. One day, Aerith walked up to Elmira and said, "Please don't cry." Elmira was like, what? Aerith said someone dear to Elmira had died. He wanted to see her, but he already returned to the planet. A few days later, Elmira received word that her husband had died in the war.
If he did that, I'd be like, dude, my kid got some bad vibes.
No, Aerith has good vibes.
Aerith has mixed vibes. I say that with love.
Yeah,
she's
fair.
awesome, but her vibes, she's got some contradictory vibes.
Later, Sung arrived at Elmira's house and told her they've been searching for Aerith because she's an ancient. Elmira's like, "Oh, what's an ancient? Looks pretty young to me." Sung says the ancients will lead us to a land of supreme happiness. Aerith will be able to bring happiness to all those in the slums. Aerith denies being an ancient and runs off, but Elmira knew of her mysterious abilities, hearing voices when no one's around. And I just want to say, there is some really creative filmmaking in this part of the game. There's a part where we see the present gang in the kitchen talking, and then it pans up, and the gang is just off screen, and then past Aerith walks down the stairs, and it pans down, and now it's past Elmira in the kitchen. It's really cool.
It's very modern American
really
theater.
Yes.
Yeah, that was actually one of the things that I'd picked as a memorable moment, just because I love the immediacy of it. Like, it almost gives the impression that she's like flashing back to it, you know, that she's remembering it very vividly, because it just doesn't even cut to it as a flashback. It gives it a very big, like, emotional immediacy to me that I really, really love.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's definitely a memorable moment, but I had to say it now so I wouldn't forget it. Cloud says it's amazing that Aerith avoided capture all these years. Elmira says it's because they need her help, so they couldn't harm her. Tifa asks why she was captured this time. Elmira says Aerith brought a little girl here, then Sung arrived. Aerith traded her freedom for the girl's safety. Barrett tells Elmira that Marlene is his daughter and apologizes for Aerith getting captured because of her. Elmira tells Barrett off for neglecting his child. He says he's thought about that plenty and wants to be with her always, but he has to fight for the planet. It's a really good bit of dialogue. I love Barrett. He's such a good character.
Yeah, I like that part a whole lot. It's real.
Elmira tells Barrett that Marlene is upstairs. Barrett goes to see her. Eventually, Cloud heads upstairs too, and Barrett tells him that he wants to help Aerith since she did so much for him. And the fact that he gets to do so by kicking Shinra's ass is a nice bonus. Marlene tells Cloud that Aerith asked her a lot of questions about him and that she thinks Aerith likes him. Cloud heads downstairs and Tifa says she's coming too. She feels guilty about getting Aerith involved in all this. Barrett asks Elmira to take care of Marlene for a while longer. He advises them to go somewhere safer. Elmira agrees to this as long as Barrett promises not to get himself killed. The gang doesn't know how to get to Shinra Tower from here because there's not a train going there anymore, so they head to Wall Market to see if they can find anything there. Conveniently, they find that the destruction of Sector 7 caused a bunch of debris to form the shape of a terrible dungeon that leads right to the
part
surface.
Of the game, I feel like I feel like it's the definitive Final Fantasy VII moment. Like, that might sound like a funny thing to say, but what I mean is, I'm not saying it's the definitive moment as far as its narrative or its themes or its all the things that are so good about it. But FF7's got this weird fucking jank that no other game in the series has and almost no other JRPG has, mostly involving its use of pre-rendered backgrounds and the weird ways that they look and the gameplay that you do within them. Is all over the game, and this is like pure fucking like unfucking cut FF7 weird jank, this part of the game, and I adore it. It is they completely cut it out of the remake. They actually subtly transposed its mechanical conceit to a different part of the game. But for all intents and purposes, they completely cut it out and replaced it with a normal dungeon with beautiful music. It rules.
It's funny because there's like no battles. There's just a bunch of walking around trying to figure out what the fuck you're supposed to do. But this section in the remake is like the most action-packed part of the game.
Yeah, I mean, we're finally going to be the big damn heroes. So you're running up the highway and there's a beautiful sunset and there's some stupendously good Masashi Hamauzu music playing.
Yes, and there's lots of fights.
Conceptually, it makes a lot more sense that way. To be this big heroic, assault. But instead, it's just like, yeah, what if you really couldn't tell what was a platform and what wasn't, and then you just sort of the Cloud did little 3D Lego jumps onto various random things that you're like, oh, I guess that's a surface that one can stand on if you felt like it. And then there's like a golden chain of destiny or whatever.
Yes.
Yeah. And to top it all off, to make this even more of a quintessential Final Fantasy VII thing, the instructions for the minigame are translated incorrectly. They tell you to jump at a time where it will not work. They tell you to do it before it gets too close.
Yep.
But you have to do it when it's closest.
That explains so much about every time I've played through this fucking section. I had no idea. I was just always like, man, the timing is really janky and weird and bad. I'm mad now. I've played this game so many times. I'm so mad.
Actually, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and say it. Because I feel very clever about this. The part where they transposed it, for the record, once in the FF7 remake, once you get into Shinra Tower, if you recall, before the fucking stairs scene, instead of you entering the building via stairs or via storming in, which means via stairs, there's like the lobby floor first, and in the lobby, you have to do this weird platformer segment where you play as Tifa and have to do weird jumps, and then you have to unlock the door. That's this. They were just, they just took the same idea of weird platforming bullshit and moved where it was in the game and made it, I would still say, a little boring, but at least boring in a nice, chill way, instead of in an absurdly stupid way.
Oh boy, yeah.
So the gang heads through the terrible dungeon and arrives at the entrance to Shinra Tower. Barrett says he's heard that the floors above the 60th floor are restricted, so they're probably holding Aerith somewhere there. He wants to just go in the front door and start blasting, but Tifa says they should find a sneakier way in. I'm pretty sure you can go through the front door and start blasting, but why would you do that?
I actually did it this time simply because, I don't know, someone's fucking got to. It's actually pretty fun. There is some interesting dialogue. I don't remember any of it, but it's characterful. It's them saying we can do it, guys, and get them, and there's some interesting. It's got nothing on the stair sequence. That's all I'm saying. But it's not just you fight a bunch of battles. It's kind of fun, and if it was the only option, it would be a pretty memorable part of the game, I think. But it's not the only option, so we don't need to talk about it. It's not canon.
It's not. The gang finds a service entrance and climbs the stairs to the 60th floor. You literally have to climb all the way to the 60th floor while Tifa and Barrett bicker. There is no battles, just stairs. It's not abridged at all.
Can I just say another moment that the remake absolutely nailed? Just
this.
Extremely good.
Yes.
Oh, it's hysterical. I do think that the pacing of it's weird because, like I said, in this game, there's no battles at all. You get to the tower, the enemy doesn't know you're there yet. You're being sneaky. You can choose to be sneaky or fight. In the remake, first you fight up a highway, then you fight through a fucking parking garage, then you enter the building unmolested somehow, and then only after clearing the first floor of dumb puzzles, then you get to choose between going in guns blasting to the second floor or climbing stairs. The stair sequence is hysterical, but they don't set it up in a way that makes it work as well. I don't know. That's just, I love the remake. I think it's incredible. That is one of my biggest critiques, is that they just really botched the way that whole sequence is, the way the pieces are put together. It's just are we gonna climb stairs at some point? And then you finally do, and it's great. Also, I do think this is meant to be a little bit of a cute joke about the magic tower in FF6. Another dungeon that is entirely tower, entirely stairs, except that is an actual dungeon that you fight monsters on the way up. And this time they're wait, what if you didn't, though?
At one point on the stairs, Tifa calls Barrett the R word, which incredibly has apparently never been changed in an official release.
Oh, gosh. Yeah.
Apparently you play this on the PS4, it's still there.
It's so bad. It's really bad, but I can't help but find it hilarious from a game that is otherwise so... The game is otherwise so unproblematic. I mean, I know there's the... Well, no, there's not. All the queer stuff from last week is great. The game is so unobjectionable and holds up today in so many ways. Anyone can play the game today and still fucking love it, even if they don't play old games, except... And that just makes this part stick out in a way that I cannot help but find hysterical.
It really can't
weird.
be understated how much that word was just kind of normalized back then.
I think that's the thing. It's wow, we've really changed as a society. Man, in a lot of ways, society still sucks, and there's still a lot of bigotry. But somehow, everyone in the world got the memo that we don't say that anymore. Apparently we did eventually get that memo, so to see it today is so bizarre.
I still, on rare occasion, hear people say it, and my immediate gut reaction isn't, whoa, it's, what year is it?
Yeah, it's different than other slurs. If I hear someone say other slurs, I'm hey, not cool, dude. But I'm yeah, some people say slurs that aren't okay. But when you hear that one, you're did I fall? Was I in a coma for 20 years? Like, or were the last 20 years actually fake and it's still 1997 again? Like,
it's very exclusively like a specific type of like right-wing chanter or something that uses it at this point. It's very strange.
Yeah. I have to use this moment to bring up the fact. I have to remind you or inform you if you don't know yet that. Of the original title of the famous Black Eyed Peas hit single "Let's Get It Started."
Oh no!
I know.
I didn't know that till a few years ago. Anyway, we can go on now.
It's a wild fact.
It was a weird 2003. 2003? God damn.
Anyway, Tifa, not cool.
Not cool, Tifa.
The gang now has to go through a bunch of wacky challenges to gain access to the higher floors. Along the way, they meet Midgar's mayor, Domino, and his assistant, Hart. Shinra runs everything these days, so Domino is pissed off at them and happy to help our heroes. Eventually, the gang crawls through some air vents to spy on a meeting between the Shinra executives. Reeves starts talking about how much it will cost to rebuild the Sector 7 plate, but President Shinra says they're not rebuilding. Rather, they're focusing on the Neo Midgar project. He says the Promised Land will be theirs in due time. He says they're going to increase energy rates. A goofy guy named Palmer expresses his hope that the space program will get some of that extra money, but President Shinra says the revenue will be shared between Reeve and Scarlet. Reeve is concerned about the plan to raise energy rates, but President Shinra just says villain shit at him. A guy named Hojo walks in. He is clearly a mad scientist. President Shinra asks how the girl is. Hojo says that as a specimen, she's inferior to her mother, Ifalna. Which I forgot that Aerith's mother had a name.
Mm-hmm.
Me too.
Hojo says all the mad science he has to do can't be finished in their lifetime, which is why he's thinking of breeding her to create offspring with the strength to endure his research over a longer period of time. Gross.
Oh god, there's a lot of fan fiction about that, isn't there? I just realized and I don't want to look.
Oh, I'm sure.
The meeting concludes, and the gang tails Hojo. Barrett asks if Cloud knows Hojo. Cloud says this is the first time he's seen him, but Cloud seems to know more than he lets on. The gang sneaks into Hojo's laboratory, where they see him regarding one of his specimens in a glass enclosure. It's some kind of red lion dog thing. Hojo leaves, and Cloud notices a hatch labeled Genova. He looks through the window on the hatch and sees what looks like a woman without a head. A piercing tone shoots through Cloud's brain, and he falls to the ground. He's like, Genova, Sephiroth. So they brought it here. Cloud notes that it's moving. It seems to be alive. Barrett is like, this is gross. Let's go.
That's right, Barrett.
I love Barrett.
Mm-hmm.
The gang heads to the second floor of the laboratory, where they see Hojo regarding Aerith in an enclosure. Hojo asks what they want and says villain shit about how they can't kill him because then who would operate the equipment here? He orders the specimen be brought in. The lion dog from before is raised into Aerith's enclosure. It starts growling menacingly at Aerith. Hojo says both of these species are on the brink of extinction, and it seems he's gonna have them mate. Gross.
I don't think this mad scientist knows how science works.
Hey, he knows more than us, I'm sure. He's a mad scientist.
They're different species. Literally, one of the things that makes something a species is that it can only breed with other members of its species. That's how species work. That's not a hard definition. Science is, biology is confusing, but that is one of the definitions. I just find it very, I find it very unlikely that these two, that anything will come of this. Is all I'm saying.
How many legs would they have? 3?
Yeah, it's the average of 3. It's the average of 2 and 4.
I'm just gonna go with the logic of animated movies, where they'd have 4 babies, 3 of them look like Red 13, and one of them looks like Aerith.
I guess I shouldn't encourage it. Yeah, I mean, what's next? Having a person whose father is a human and mother is an opossum?
That would be stupid.
That would be really stupid. What, are they going to go to college and be like, what's up? Like it's no big deal?
Like it's no big deal.
The weird thing to me about this sequence is just that, like, the Honeybee Inn and that whole thing, like with Cloud's cross-dressing, deals with sex, but in a way that almost makes me think the game doesn't actually know what sex is. Like, it's just, it dances around it in the way that a T-rated game from 1997 would. This feels like, you know, you got a mad scientist just being like, hey, I'm going to put this girl in with a wild animal and see what happens. It seems really, like, weird and dark and bad.
Yeah. One thing I will say to contextualize, because we're laughing, we're yucking it up, we're guffawing up a mild drizzle over here. But like, I do want to clarify for the listeners who have not played FF7, this sequence is incredible and it is terrifying. Like, the game takes a hard turn into sci-fi horror vibes. And it's very effective. It's really, really good. Mostly, again, due to those beautiful pre-render backgrounds filled with like dull grays and greens and blues and creepy music and smoke and vapor and flickering lights and all that shit, right? Like it is fucked up. It's weird and it's dark and it's violent in the way that like the film Alien is, like, you know, that like that. I mean, yeah, like the idea, like the threat of like sexual violence here feels very. It's very scary and fucked up. And from here until the end of what this week's discussion, well, except for the part where you drive a cool motorcycle, from here until the part where you drive a cool motorcycle, it is a top-notch, like, edge-of-your-seat nail-biter of science fiction scariness.
Which makes it all the funnier for me when Barrett sees Genova and says, and I quote, "Where's its fucking head? This whole thing's stupid. Let's keep going."
That's right.
It doesn't say fucking, obviously, but it has all the symbols, and I interpret that as that. Because the game says shit. It doesn't censor that, so, it's only one other word it could be doing.
Yep.
Heckin'.
So at this point, Barrett has had enough, and he shoots the enclosure. The enclosure starts glowing for some reason. Hojo panics and opens it. The lion dog leaps out and starts mauling Hojo. Cloud helps Aerith up, but the elevator in the enclosure starts moving. Hojo says another specimen, and quite a ferocious one, is coming up. The lion dog says it will help fight the monster. Tifa is like, did that lion dog just talk? Cloud sends either Tifa or Barrett to get Aerith to safety and asks the lion dog's name. He says Hojo gave him the name Red 13, but Cloud may call him whatever he likes. And it's weird that only one name entry screen among all the others is diegetic.
That is strange. Well, no, we, the player, can call any of these people whatever we want, but this is the only time when the characters in-game are actually deciding what to call somebody.
Anyway, you probably just leave it as Red 13, or if you're a smartass, you name him Nanaki.
Okay, I have feelings about that, but I feel like it's getting into spoilery territory for the Nanaki thing. Is this the place to talk about it or later?
It's just Red 13, who cares?
Okay, here's the thing, though. He eventually has a whole revelation, and it's an entire-ass character, like the culmination of a character arc in which he proudly declares his actual goddamn name.
Yeah.
And then the game is just like, everyone just keeps calling him Red 13. Like, that is bonkers to me. That really should have been a point. And I understand why it's not, because it lets you name characters, and it's not going to, if you named him Zeus Mel Poop Lord or whatever, then it's not going to overwrite that. But it's bonkers to me that you have an entire character arc around someone basically coming to accept who they are and proudly declare themselves that, and then everyone just keeps calling him by the experimental name some asshole mad scientist gave him. That sucks. So I get naming him Nanaki, if only so that eventually they actually call him by his actual name. But
you know what they should have done? They should have made it where when he dramatically discovers his real name, the player also gets to pick what that is. So he's like, I have no longer Zeus Mel Poop Lord. I am now dipshit, dipshit, bitch ass, and I'm proud of it.
That would be bad, but might be better. I don't
And
know.
that way you still get to have a name of the player picked while also still having the dramatic character arc. Now, I'd be great.
That's true.
Or he's like, I thought my name was Red 13, but actually it's I don't know. I'm imagining like a 7-year-old would call like lion face meowmers.
Yeah, I'd call them lion face meowmers. That sounds good.
Yes.
So to keep everyone updated on the Dragon Ball Z names, I named Red 13 Android 16 because he has a very similar
You're stupid.
personality. But I thought about Android 13, but Android 13 is not canon. It's from the movie.
Exactly.
No one gives a shit about the movie.
Not real.
It never happened. Cloud, Red 13, and party member 3 fight the specimen. It's hard. After the fight, Barrett asks Red 13 what he is. Red 13 dodges the question and says they need to leave. He also apologizes to Aerith and says he was just trying to freak Hojo out by being growly and shit. Barrett says they've got to split into 2 groups to get out of here, since the battle party can only have 3 people, so they do that. Cloud and his group head to the elevator, but a Turk named Arud corners them. Sung also shows up. We don't get to fight them, they just capture us.
Mm-hmm. It's important to note that Aerith and Barrett don't have the best boss battle in the game right here, like they do in the remake.
God, that is such a fucking good battle.
It is. It's the best boss battle in the remake.
The remake does a really clever thing where the game has 4 playable characters. That's it. The whole game has 4 playable characters. Cloud, Barrett, Tifa, Aerith. You only ever have 3 at once. The game never at any point lets you pick what characters you want because there's always only 3 because of plot reasons. Except at this point, all 4 of them are in the same place now, so the game contrives a way to split it into 2 parties of 2. And man, you're used to having a party of 3 for the whole game. So then having to have a set where you're these 2 guys and then a set where you're these 2 guys is such good game design. And both of the bosses are fantastic.
Also, Barrett and Aerith, I don't think have been in a party together at this point, so it's interesting mechanically to.
The thing is, they're both support characters.
Yeah,
they're both they both really only make sense alongside someone else who can actually just like hit a guy for normal damage, normal style. So I know Barrett can if you switch his gun arm to like the weird wrecking ball, but I never got the hang of that. So yeah, it's I know we're supposed to be talking about the original game, but you know what? Look, there's not going to be any more remake talk after today. So whatever. So whatever, that's right? Now the remake does handle this part in a absolutely phenomenal way. Like I don't think Sam's exaggerating. I think it is probably the best gameplay sequence of the entire game.
The Turks lead the whole gang except Aerith to President Shinra's office. Cloud asks what they did with Aerith. President Shinra gives a villain monologue about how she's very valuable to them as the last of the ancients who called themselves the Cetra and lived thousands of years ago, and the Cetra will lead them to the legendary Promised Land, which is bursting with Mako, and they're going to build the city of Neo Midgar there, and Shinra's so great, and get fucked Avalanche.
That's verbatim, by the way.
Yes.
No punctuation or anything.
I want the Bernard translation of this game.
I would love to just write a whole script for this game.
It would be pretty fun.
President Shinra says their audience is over, and it's not clear why this audience happened in the first place. The gang gets thrown into the jail that they have in Shinra Tower. While beezing in jail, Tifa asks Aerith if the Promised Land exists. She says she doesn't know. All she knows is the Cetra are born of the planet. They speak with the planet, and they unlock the planet. And then the Cetra will return to the Promised Land, a land of supreme happiness, which was granted by the planet. Cloud asks what the planet says when the Cetra speak to it. Aerith says she can't make out what it's saying because it's too noisy, like it's full of people. She only ever heard it in the church in the slums. Her mother had told her that she must escape Midgar, then she can speak with the planet and find her Promised Land. After some more characterful interactions, the gang goes to sleep. Cloud wakes up to find his cell door open. He steps out and finds a guard's dead body. Something is wrong, and this is where it really gets spooky.
Yeah, I was going to say, in terms of the ship of horror, this sequence is fucking incredible.
It gets creepy. It gets creepy earlier, but yeah, this is the point where, like, you get captured. There's a bit of a break. It's a very clear act break, like before you're in jail and then after you're in jail. Like at this point, it is like you're no longer like you've completed the dungeon. The dungeon's over. Now we're in sort of uncharted territory, I guess.
Cloud alerts the rest of the gang to what's happening. Red 13 runs ahead and Barrett hangs back because the battle party can only have 3 people. Cloud, Tifa, and Aerith head off to follow Red 13. There's more dead bodies along the way, and lots of blood. In the lab, they find that the Genova specimen has been stolen. The gang follows the trail of blood all the way to President Shinra's office. They find President Shinra with a giant sword stuck through him. He is dead. Cloud recognizes the sword as belonging to Sephiroth. Tifa is shocked that Sephiroth might still be alive. Palmer peeks out of a corner and tries to run away, but the gang catches him. He says he saw Sephiroth and heard him mumble something about not handing over the Promised Land. Barrett, who showed up earlier, is like, so he's trying to save the Promised Land, so he's a good guy? Cloud says Sephiroth is most definitely not a good guy. He must have some other goal. Palmer runs off as a helicopter flies out by the balcony outside. Barrett recognizes it as belonging to Rufus, the vice president of Shinra and the president's son. The gang runs out to meet him. Rufus is like, who the fuck are you? And Cloud is like, I'm an ex-soldier. And Barrett and Tifa are like, we're from Avalanche. And Aerith is like, I'm a flower girl from the slums. And Red 13 is like, I'm a lab rat.
Again, another moment in the remake, just absolutely. Aerith saying, local florist will never leave my head.
And then Red 13, lab rat dog.
The line is definitely kind of funny in this game, but it's like, I feel like they wrote it without realizing how dumb and funny it was. And then in the remake, they realized, oh, we should like highlight this as like a parody of like a dramatic anime moment where everyone says who they really are, but they're all just like random people.
Performances really help too. Like, it's one thing to just have the line written, it's another to actually hear her like so just confidently blurt out local florist like she's some kind of badass. It's so good.
It is.
I love her.
It's a good thing Rebirth isn't out yet, because then we would have more episodes where we keep talking about the remake instead of the actual game.
Totally. And again, I think the reason why it's totally fine for us to do this is because we're not going to do it anymore.
Yeah, it's just so good until about right now in the story. So, you know.
Yeah, and we won't be able to talk about the remake again until it's completely done and we do a long cast on it. So
let's go.
Yes.
Yeah, cool.
Plenty of reason to talk now.
Rufus introduces himself as the new president of Shinra and gives a villain speech about how his father ruled with money, but he will rule with fear. And I'm like, your father just basically destroyed a borough of New York City, and that seems like ruling with fear to me. But anyway, Cloud tells the gang to take Aerith and get out while he 1v1s Rufus. Cloud says he'll explain later that this is the real crisis threatening the planet. On the way down, Tifa decides to wait for Cloud since the battle party can only have 3 people. Barrett, Aerith, and Red 13 head down to the elevator and are attacked by a giant robot. Oh no! They kick its ass. Meanwhile, Cloud stares down Rufus. He says he's going to stop him. Rufus asks if Cloud knew that Sephiroth is an ancient. Cloud says he won't let Shinra or Sephiroth get the Promised Land. Cloud 1v1s Rufus, except Rufus is cheating because he also has a dog with him.
Also, really, really good boss battle in the remake.
Yes, it's intense.
Mm-hmm.
After Cloud kicks his ass, Rufus bails on the helicopter. Cloud heads downstairs and meets up with Tifa. We see the others reach the bottom floor, but it's crawling with jerks. The Shinra soldiers have the building completely surrounded. Tifa runs in and says to follow her. They're like, where's Cloud? Cloud rides in on a cool fucking motorcycle. Inside.
Every teenager in 1997 or every 6-year-old in 1997 lost their goddamn minds when, with the power of full motion video technology, the coolest boy in the world shows up with his giant sword on his back on top of a enormous fucking Harley Davidson. It's cool.
Yes. The rest of the gang hijacks a dopey little pickup truck that's on display. And I wish real pickup trucks were like this and not too big to fit in parking spaces. So they bust out of a window and onto a highway, and we have a motorcycle minigame, which is beautiful and a lot more FPS than you would expect.
Yep. Mm-hmm. I think it's pretty fun, actually, too.
Yeah, I was surprised when replaying it that it's one of the only mini games in this entire part of the game that went unchanged in the remake. Like,
pretty much, yeah.
You play it like this. There's like more to it, and it's remakified, but you swing your sword on either side. And they add a boss battle to it. Yeah. But
yeah, no, it's so like last time I was talking about how this game has this weird thing where there's all these like brief, bespoke, like uniquely programmed interactions that are kind of like mini games, that like mini games that take like 5 seconds to play and are all just like strange and lumpy. The game also has some straight up mini games. It's got 3, maybe. And I won't say what they are because I don't want to spoil for the people who don't already know. I think it's got like 3 like elaborately designed actual ass mini games, and this is the first one, and it's a real fun time. And the music is great.
Mm-hmm.
Not as fun as the submarine one later, though, but
that one's cool. But don't say what the other one is, because the identity of the third one.
Assuming that, I fucking hate the submarine one. I was assuming everyone would agree with me.
You were
that,
joking.
I guess not.
Well, I legitimately think
the submarine one sucks.
I remember it sucking, but not so strongly that I would like, oh, maybe it's good actually. You know, to each their own, I guess. But the identity of the third one, I think, is a special little surprise that we shouldn't spoil in case anyone doesn't already know it.
Definitely,
because
I'm pretty sure we mentioned it in the first episode.
It's stupid as shit. And maybe we did. Whatever.
Not actually remembering with. Oh shit! No, I do remember. Never mind. Okay, yeah, you're right. Oh boy.
The gang reaches the end of the highway and fights a boss. After kicking the boss's ass, Barrett asks what they do now. And I want to point out this whole conversation takes place on a beautiful pre-rendered background.
Mm-hmm.
Cloud says he has to settle the score with Sephiroth. Barrett says if that'll save the planet, he's coming along. Aerith agrees. She says there's things she needs to find out. Tifa says this is goodbye to Midgar. The gang climbs down a convenient wire to the outskirts of the city. And I now wonder how Red 13 climbed down that wire.
Well, you see, Cloud pressed the I'm the party leader button and absorbed Red 13 into his body so that only Cloud had to climb down.
I see. Red 13 says he's heading to his hometown and he'll travel with the gang that far. Barrett says they need a leader and it should be him, which makes sense. He has done leader things before.
He's not a great leader, but he does put a lot of work into it.
Yeah. Aerith says Cloud should be the leader because he's on the box art. Barrett reluctantly agrees and says they should head to the nearby town of Calm, but also that they need to split into 2 groups because the battle party can only have 3 people. And next week we will head to Calm, and you know how Midgar was just wall-to-wall landmark groundbreaking sequences? We're going to have another one in Calm.
Hell yeah.
The most important one yet, to be clear.
Oh, yeah.
What's coming up next is the most not only the most important sequence of the game, but one of the most important in the way that it like pushes forward like the language of video games, like one of the most important sequences in like the history of video games.
Yeah, but we'll talk about that next week.
That's right.
Yeah, we're going to end up talking about this a lot more eventually, but I do think it's amazing that after Midgar, which is just a very, like, it's a very well-paced, like, y'all have played enough JRPGs that I'm sure you're very, very familiar with the story structure of, like, have an important thing happen and then do a bunch of filler bullshit for a while until eventually something important happens again.
Oh, yes.
And Final Fantasy VII does that so little compared to other games. Like, I would be afraid that after Midgar, the story's going to loosen up and the pacing's going to start getting really lopsided and messy. And it does that a bit. It's not completely devoid of that, but compared to a lot of other JRPGs I've played, it's downright tightly paced.
I mean, it definitely looses and gooses a little bit, but that's because, in addition to its everything up until for some parts of FF7, it's like nonstop, like capital P plot, and every single thing is important. You're building this mystery.
It's very much like that.
Yeah, but there's a lot of other stuff. These character narratives, right? So like, it looses and gooses up, but only in the sense that sometimes you'll have a whole like episodic piece of game that really doesn't advance the plot at all, but it does let a character really get to have the spotlight and develop their personal narrative a lot. And you know, that's still really good, even if it's totally a lot more like it, even if it's more laid back than the Midgar section of the game.
For sure.
So yeah, let's listen to some Final Fantasy VII music and then talk about our memorable moments.
Now that track was great.
That was shit. I hated it.
Let's go ahead and say that was the fucking motorcycle music there.
Oh gosh, never. Oh man, I just realized I can't say that. No matter what music is there, I'm gonna feel bad saying it was bad. So never mind. Forget that joke. I can't do it.
I would say there's one song that's a little mid. The song that plays when you wake up and everyone's dead, and it's like horror now. Very effective piece of music, but not that great musically. The do 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 do. Mostly because of the sound fonts it uses. It's kind of flat.
Yeah, it's a good atmosphere piece, not so much a I'm going to put this on a Spotify playlist and listen to it piece. So,
but almost every other track in the game is both, so it does stand out in that way.
Yeah.
When you were doing the notes of it, it sort of sounded like you were about to do the mystery theme from Arrested Development.
That's right. Speaking of things that don't hold up because of some of the language that they use.
Arrested Development does not hold up. Anyway, let's talk about Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah. So fun fact, I, in my brain, put the sequence that's at Calm later and so I thought that we were about to head to what is actually called Cosmo Canyon, and so I thought Maddie was losing her bonkers about the campfire scene, and I'm like, I mean, it's a great scene. It's one of my favorites on disc 1, but changes the history of video games forever. That's kind of a lot.
No, this game sets you up to think the game has a certain plot, which is that Shinra is bad and you're going to get him. Then the president of Shinra dies, and you exit the place where the game was happening, and you realize that was a fake out. That's not really the plot of the game. And then they immediately, without wasting a single second, well, except for the time it takes you to travel on the world map from Midgar to Calm, they immediately fucking throw you in the deep end into the actual game with this great fucking scene that sets up the rest of the game.
Yes.
I think because I mentioned last time that FF7 kind of blew my mind in terms of like large scale games that really focus on narrative. And I think that this whole thing of starting with Midgar and then moving on to other things and seeing what a bigger story it actually had was one of the things that did that. I don't think I'd ever come across something that made me think for so long, oh yeah, I know what this game is about, and then absolutely became about something else. Not in a way that invalidated what was before, but like in a way that evolved it into something completely different, which is in some ways a typical JRPG thing, right? You start off killing rats, you end up killing God, but like
it's done just different in this game. It's different.
Yeah. And, when you haven't played anything like that in the first place, it hits you real hard.
Well, I would say what makes it work so well, I will say, is that the game doesn't shift from being about one thing to being about another. It shifts from being about one thing to being about you're not really sure.
Yeah.
The game does not make clear what it is actually doing for a very long time. You just know that it's not, we gotta go beat Shinra.
Yeah, and it's not even another necessarily so much as more. Like, that's still a big...
Yeah, the Shinra thing doesn't actually go away. They don't stop being much bad. Matters.
Yeah, like it's all very important setup. It's just that suddenly it's way bigger, and you're not sure exactly how yet, and it's good. We're getting a little ahead of ourselves, I guess, but the Midgar sequence is important to that, and it's real good.
I have only one Mim to talk about, and I forgot what it is. So y'all are going to have to talk and tell me what it is.
I've got a few like usual, so whoever wants to go first can.
Okay. So I took a couple great like screenshots that I loved. One was when Barrett says, "It ain't us, it's the damn Shinra. It's never been nobody but the Shinra." Like, that scene's just fantastic, and I love, like, in a game about corporations causing ecological disasters and someone saying that any part of it is our fault, having someone be like, "No, it's not," was great. And I really like that because
Barrett's got his eye on the prize, and I respect the fuck out of that.
Yeah. I also really like how they, in the original translation, they inconsistently refer to it as Shinra or the Shinra.
The Shinra, yeah.
Yeah, it's cute.
In the jail, Cloud and Tifa are in one cell, and Aerith is on the left, and Barrett and Red 13 are on the right. And Cloud is talking with Aerith through the wall, and she's like, "I knew you'd come save me." And he's like, "Well, I'm your bodyguard, ain't I?" And she's like, "The deal was for one date, right?" And then Tifa's like, "Oh, I get it." And then Aerith is like, "Oh, fuck, Tifa's in there."
Yeah, it's good.
It's so good.
I will say I do love that moment, but also I have to, again, to talk about the remake, I do love that the dynamic between Aerith and Tifa in this one is largely we both like Cloud. Like, we're friends, but we both like Cloud. And the way that they absolutely shifted that dynamic to best gal pals in the remake is just extremely good, and I love it.
In the remake, there's a lot more time for them to have a relationship at this point in the story. And yeah, it's great.
Remember when Barrett fucking dies?
Yeah,
I don't feel bad about
talking about the remake.
I don't feel bad about spoiling that. In the remake, there's a fake out where you think Barrett dies, and for a second I thought he really died, and I was like, holy shit, that would be a very bold way to totally change the story, but then it turns out he didn't really die.
They
kind of got me for a second, though.
Capital SF some feelings about the way that the remake swerved near the end, but we're not talking about it.
We're definitely not talking about that.
I'm to, but I have the feelings, and they're very strong. Anyway.
Speaking of things I have really strong feelings about, so back when I first played this game, my big brain opening to say that the graphics are good actually is that this game doesn't have 3D models, it has 3D sprites. And they are using the 3D models the same way that they use the sprites on the Super NES, including brilliantly done sprite-based slapstick comedy.
Yes.
And there's one scene, it's in a dramatic-ass scene. It's when Elmira is talking about how her fucking husband died, and she found Aerith and everything. So it does a pan up, and you see them at the train. The first thing to notice is that Jesse and Biggs are on a date and they're hanging out, like holding hands, swinging each other around and being adorable. And that animation of swinging someone around and being adorable becomes important. So then some dude steps off the train and his wife is there. He picks up his wife and spins her around and is adorable. Then a real big old man comes out and like his 12-year-old daughter is there, and she picks up her dad and spins him around with the same animation, and they walk off, and then the scene continues, and it's so good. I love it, and I'm never deleting this video file off my PS5.
There's also in the very dramatic scene where they're at the top of the pillar and Reno is running off. He sort of runs into Tifa and she just spins in place for a little bit. Mm-hmm. It's very silly.
Oh, and then the final one that I have. Actually, no, I have two more. One of them is an actual Mim Mom. The one of the stupid puzzles you do in the Shinra Tower dungeon is you have to rebuild this model of Midgar, and you find pieces that are broken from each of the sectors. But Sector 7, you don't find that piece because it's broken because they just killed a lot of people with it. And I thought that was pretty cool and interesting. The other one is there's an NPC that's talking about how to find the crappy pile of trash dungeon. And he says there a bunch of debris fell down from the plate, quote, but the old guy who likes tanks took all of it away, and I wanted some too. And I was like, damn it, Matt, why are you stealing salvage from these people, you old man who likes tanks?
Very weird that I failed to remember the one thing I wanted to mention in this game. I was like right at the end, there's a thing that I thought Bernard was going to mention but he didn't, and I wanted to point it because it's fucking awesome, but I guess I don't remember it. That's a damn shame.
Well, but I've got a number of them, so you can.
I will still say one thing though. Bernard, did you maybe I spaced out, but I don't think I did. Did you mention the fucking how insanely cool the battle where you're on a goddamn elevator is?
I mentioned that there was a battle. I didn't mention it was insanely fucking cool.
Yeah. Okay. So here's the thing. It's a fucking boss battle against a goddamn like helicopter or whatever, and yeah, like. Your whole party is like the 3D model of the environment is you're literally on an elevator that's rapidly descending, and like, you know, we all know that trains, like train levels are awesome, but like new moving platform to be on that makes something dramatic just dropped, which is the fucking elevator fight, right?
Elevator action returns.
Well, I guess they've had elevator fight for ages. It's like a staple of like beat 'em up games, right? Like fucking Ninja Turtles or whatever. But yeah, no, a descending elevator boss battle. What's cute about it in an RPG sense is that it doesn't matter mechanically. It's purely aesthetic. But boy, is it cool. It's cool as shit when you're standing in one place and then something is flying outside the elevator fucking like shooting at you and shit. It's just another use of like the thing about Shinra, all the stuff in the Midgar part. Most of it is not groundbreaking narrative technique. It's doing shit that FF6 was already doing, but using technology. I'm saying the use of technology is largely not to like do anything insanely crazy artistically. It's just used to be cool as shit. Like they're just like, no, like we have the technology to make this like way flashier and more exciting and badass than it would be if we were on the PlayStation, on the SNES. And this is just an example of like, nah, like there's no artistic depth or meaning to why they're on a fucking elevator, but motherfucker is it good.
Yeah, I think that often kind of gets overlooked when people talk about the effects that Final Fantasy VII had on presentation for JRPGs, because it's often talked about as if it's just, oh, well, after this, it was all about big, long, pretty cutscenes or whatever. But also the shift from like the Super Nintendo games where there were just kind of static backgrounds based on the current environment or whatever, to something like this when they can have a greater variety of them with a lot more detail. Like, sure, it doesn't add a lot of thematic depth or whatever, but the ability to have a greater sense of place, to not just have a battle and say, oh, it's in this building, but oh, this is happening in the elevators outside. Like, there's so much more mobility and versatility in the way that the battles can be visually framed, and that is genuinely really cool.
And the fact that, like, when you fight the battle against Rufus Shinra, that you're like outside of the fucking tower, like you're not in the building, you're like on the balcony with this like dramatic fucking like looking over the city and shit. It's like there's a lot of dramatic cinematic language that they just weren't able to do before. And again, it doesn't take a genius to figure it out. It just takes a little bit of creativity and a little bit of a desire to want to make sure you do the most you can with the technology that's available to you.
And a lot of budget.
Yeah, yes. Exactly. And when I say it doesn't require a genius, I don't mean that to disparage them. I'm saying that they did. This is the kind of shit that does not require you to be a genius. There's other shit in the game that does, right? And it's like, good on them for simply just being craftsmen and doing the best that they can to make the most exciting and entertaining product that they could fucking make, given their tools at the time, you know?
Well, as usual, I've got a lot. I think this happened when we were talking about Lunar too, but I totally forgot that I was like the guy who had way too many memorable moments, so I'll try and be quick about them again. During the FMV cutscene where the plate falls on Midgard, there is like the whole thing I think is pretty effective. It conveys the horror of the plate dropping well, but there is one particular shot that always just like kind of viscerally freaks me out, and it's a shot from inside of a house in Sector 7, and you can see outside the window the plate starting to fall, and the power goes out, and there's, this view from the perspective of someone who is about to be fucking crushed. It's horrifying. It's very good. Like, the scene with President Shinra watching from the tower with the opera music is the one that always sticks in people's minds, but that one is just kind of viscerally terrifying in a way that I think is impressive. It was the
opera piece is apparently one of the most famous works. It's not an opera; it's an oratorio.
Excuse me.
Well, that means that it's not like a play. No one's wearing costumes and shit. They're just like singing, like what's the really famous one by fucking Handel, like Messiah. Like, that's an oratorio, right? Anyway, apparently it's a really, really famous one, but it's really famous by Haydn, and like Haydn's fucking boring as shit, so that's why I don't remember what it is. But yeah, it's The Creation by Haydn, and it's about what you would probably guess it is based on the name of it. It's like based on like the Book of Genesis and shit like that. So yeah,
that is up and ironic, and I love it.
Yeah, so it's like some boring like late 18th century bullshit.
Well, let's see. After that, there are a number of like small things that you can do revisiting some of the areas that you were that I really like. Like, there's a kid when you're traveling through earlier who's like asleep and mumbles something about his secret stash, and if you want, you can like look around his room and find some money and take it.
Yeah.
But if you don't do that, you can come back around here, and he tells you that he used the money to buy an item, and he's going to be a bigwig in the market when he's older, and he gives you a turbo ether. And I like this little bit where it's like, hey, you could steal some money from a kid, or you could, not be a tremendous asshole, and you get something better later on.
World
there's
choices.
A little bit, yeah.
If you steal money from the kid, you're going to go to jail after the courtroom scene.
Oh, gosh, yeah. There's a nice little bit where if you go to the chapel after the plate falls and Aerith was taken and such, there are two kids there, and they say they'll take care of the flowers for Aerith since she's gone.
Yeah, like
and so that's just kind of a nice little touch. There are just a few nice little things. Also, if I remember right, the guy that are sick isn't there anymore. Or am I remembering wrong on that?
I don't know.
I didn't check, but I do believe that that's true. Well, because the guy that are sick is a fucking mysterious.
Don't spoil it,
spoiler, right? Yeah.
Yes. Oh, yeah. It is.
Every time there's a weird guy. Well, this happens multiple times in the game. Is what I'm saying. You're gonna run into these weird people who have some kind of illness, and I'm pretty sure most times that happens, they end up not being there later.
Right. That makes sense.
So yeah. So what you're saying is true now, and also I'm pretty sure true in future instances of the game. I'll try to keep an eye out to see if that keeps happening or not, but I'm pretty sure it does, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, for sure. Another thing is you can go back to Walmart and into the Don's mansion, and everyone's gone because Shinra raided it, except for one dude who's tied up in the like torture basement. So that's a thing. Also, though, if you go there,
they got him with fucking Rico.
If you go back up to the Don's room, then you can go behind his bed, and there's a hyper that you can pick up, which mechanically that cures sadness, which kind of makes me chuckle, but people have posited all sorts of uses for that. It's just kind of funny. I do love... There are a few... Again, the Midgar stuff goes really hard in terms of the political commentary, and I love it a lot. I love the revelation that Mayor Domino is there, that they're like, is actually a mayor of Midgar, it's just that he doesn't matter. Like, he's a puppet to this corporation that controls everything, basically, which is not at all relatable to anything in our real life or government, thank God, for sure. Not at all familiar and scary.
It's honestly kind of like being the mayor of it's honestly not kind of like being like the mayor of Paris in the 19th century as well. It's like kind of the same thing.
Yeah. There's the bit where President Shinra is like, hey, don't bother rebuilding Sector 7. Like, fuck those poor guys or whatever. We'll leave it as is and restart the plan that'll make us richer. Like, that whole bit. There's a lot here. And, of course, one of my favorite developments, because it's really easy to say, oh, this isn't criticizing anything systemic, right? It's just that there are some bad people running a bad company doing a bad thing or whatever. But no, the minute the dude who runs it dies, he's just replaced by someone immediately that just comes right the fuck out of nowhere and makes things even worse. Like, that for me was the moment where I was like, oh, okay, this is actually like criticizing systems, not just people, because no matter who is there, that system keeps going and keeps doing what it's doing. There's always someone else to pick it up. It's nice. And then one more note about Hojo, just a personal thing. I went to see the first concert series of Distant Worlds, the Final Fantasy Orchestral tour, the very first one. As it was going around, I got to see it in San Francisco, and we got a bunch of friends who were into Final Fantasy. We got a hotel, and we stayed in the Howard Johnson Hotel, which is colloquially shortened in a lot of their marketing stuff to Hojo.
Oh, that's cute.
So we stayed in the Hojo Hotel to see the Final Fantasy concert, and that was funny. But
nice.
Anyway, that's not technically everything I could say, but it's a lot of what I was particularly enthused about, I suppose. I do want to say also, I guess, just that I really like this introduction for Red 13. It one of the major themes of the game in general is identity, and for a lot of reasons that we can't really get into yet. It's particular with a few particular characters, especially. It's a huge thing, and to have Red 13 come up here and you get a pretty strong sense of who he is from the beginning, like more than I'd remembered. Honestly,
yeah, I agree.
Yeah, he's kind of like stoic. He views things kind of simply, but he has compassion and consideration. There's a great line where when he says that he wasn't gonna breed Aerith anyway, he's like, I have a right to choose too. I don't like two-legged things. And
he has a lot more personality than I remember right off the bat.
Speaking of Red 13, I wanted to bring up for the surprisingly first time this episode, but will not be the last time throughout, in Let's Mosey, Tim Rogers' slow retranslation of Final Fantasy VII. He brings up that Red 13 is speaking like a little kid pretending to be a grown-up, which read that in all of his dialogue, and it makes it even better, which is
I don't remember
great.
if this is in Hey babe, was the thing about the characters the character names of Domino and Heart, was that in Let's Mosey?
Yes, I'm not babe, but yes. Okay,
I was talking to my girlfriend, but yeah. So this is also, Tim Rogers brings this up, and it's also like a fact that was known before his video as well, which I couldn't remember. Mayor Domino and like his second in command person, Heart. Yeah. Okay, we're still podcasting. Shush. Heart. Yeah, it's not Heart, it's Hut. The character's named after Domino's and Pizza Hut. which
Because Midgar is a pizza.
in addition to being a reference to Midgar being a pizza, is also just very Akira Toriyama.
Oh, I love
Like,
that.
oh, it's the anime character thing? Oh, let's give the characters fucking food names.
That is very good.
That's not the thing that I was going to say that I keep forgetting. I guess it's just out of my brain, which is a damn shame, because whatever it was, I felt very strongly about it. Oh, well.
Yeah. Well, in any case, the one thing about Red 13 that I really liked is that Barrett asks, "What are you?" at some point, and he says that it's a good question but hard to answer. It says, "I am what you see," and there's this very fascinating thing here with Red 13. But between that and refusing to actually say his own name, just saying, "Yeah, call me by whatever name you want, whatever name I was given by this dude," like he's refusing to claim any identity for himself at first. And that mixed with the whole talking like a child pretending to be an adult thing, like it's a really interesting introduction for the character that has a lot more going for it than I had caught on my first playthrough or two. And we'll talk about a lot more when we get to Cosmo Canyon.
In a game that is so much about other characters questioning and rediscovering their identities, it's funny that Red 13 doesn't have that problem because he just doesn't bother constructing one to begin with.
Right. I mean, the only one that he has is one that he doesn't like. Well, they're getting a little ahead of ourselves, I guess. But, like, yeah, it's great. He's great. I love him. Oh, which does remind me, I don't have my... I did actually look, unfortunately. There is one what if the breeding thing actually happened fanfic that I found. But the rest that actually has Aerith and Red 13 in it are basically just giant polycules. Like, sure, it's Aerith and Red 13, but it's also Aerith and everyone else and Red 13 and everyone else, and that's making me realize that I'm going to have Red 13 on my poly shipping chart when I figure that out, and I don't know about that.
That's your
Well,
right.
he doesn't like two-legged things, so he wouldn't be into any of these people.
Okay, that's fair, actually. That's a good way out. Look, I believe in the Harkness principle or whatever.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
It's named after Jack Harkness from Doctor Who, but it also applies to like Kirk and Star Trek and stuff. In terms of like,
don't know what you're talking about.
It's basically the principle that whether or not it is ethical to have two characters romantically or sexually involved is not based on their form but on their sapience. When you're dealing with like aliens and stuff like that, that if it looks like an animal but is a completely sapient creature, then it is ethical, that kind of thing. So theoretically I wouldn't be against it, but he does look entirely like an animal and I'm not super comfy. So
look, all I have to say about that is it's your right to do whatever you want, and I do respect it, but I don't have to like it.
Yeah.
But yeah, anything else to say before I read the same words I say every week?
No, read those. Oh wait, no, there was one more thing. I'm sorry, I had to point this out. Well, I foreshadowed this last episode. Yeah. So the game's music, I mentioned before that it foreshadows some of the game's main themes. Aerith's theme shows up, but in a 6/8 time version in the church. The main theme of the game shows up as a really dope, funky, fresh version when you're in like the maybe Sector 5 dungeon. That one, it's that's got the main theme of Final Fantasy VII in it, but in minor key, and a few other places as well.
Oh, it does.
Wait,
yeah.
What? Oh God, how have I never noticed that?
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's a huge fucking deal. And also, there's a few other tracks that foreshadow the main theme of Final Fantasy VII in various ways. But the final foreshadow happens right here when you're outside right after the motorcycle scene, and there's that beautiful scene of everyone talking about what they're going to do. You get a 6/8 version. It has those like those nice little arpeggios. That's also the main theme of Final Fantasy VII. So that's the last time you hear it foreshadowed. And then, of course, the second you exit that screen, you are now on the world map where you actually hear the main theme of Final Fantasy VII, which is a beautiful piece of music. It's 7 fucking minutes long or something, which is way too long for a world map theme. You're never going to hear the entire song unless you just sit there on the world map and chill and listen to it. You should, because it's really beautiful. It doesn't just have like a sort of a part and a B part that it goes back and forth between. After that, it switches into minor key and has a lengthy, extended, like second section that happens for a while, and then eventually it comes back to the main theme. It's very, very lovely, and I love that. Like, I would have to go back and look, and I could if I wanted to, but like, there's at least 3 or 4 tracks in the Midgar section that contain that theme within it. It's very, very cool, and the final one again appears right at the part we just did. So the end.
I also want to mention that there are multiple times this week where all the party members are just standing around, and you as Cloud can go and talk to all of them and see what they think about the situation, and I really like it. You can like go up to Aerith and
party chat.
When Rufus shows up, and she's like, I've heard no one's ever seen him bleed or cry, which is a good line. And then when you're outside Midgar, you can talk to everyone and be like, hey, are you sure you want to go on this journey? And they're like, yes. And it's good. The end.
Dope. This game is good. The end. We have no more episodes to cover.
It's very good.
Yeah, this is the end of Final Fantasy VII, as we all know. It's just Midgar.
So yeah, that'll do it for the week. If you liked what you heard today and you want to help us offset the costs of running the show, head on over to www.rpgbook.club, where any and all donations are put back to the show to make it better, to offset hosting costs and stuff like that. If you donate $1 more a month, you get access to our Book Club no Kiseki episodes a month before everyone else, as well as be able to vote on our polls, like the one we have up right now, to between Skies of Arcadia and Paper Mario. If you bump up your monthly contribution to $5 a month, you will also get your name shouted out at the end of every episode, much like these cool people who are named thusly. So
did you not bring it up again?
I had clicked off of it to look at something else like 5 seconds ago. I'm so stupid. But so shout outs to Bernie L. Taylor, AA Ron 524, Anthony Lerma, Femk, J Fro Prime, and Doho. And then if you really like us and you want to bump up your monthly donation to $20 a month, we'll not only read your name, but also give you a 1-sentence shout out to whatever you want. The idea is for this to be a URL for your Twitch stream or something like that. Or if you're like Eliza Tantavi, you want to shout out critical-distance.com, which is an aggregator for... It's an aggregator for games criticism and journalism that gets you all the good stuff. So head on over there. If you happen to like games and talking about them, I don't know why you would listen to this podcast if you were like that. Yeah, because that's where all the good stuff
games, is. In which case you should. This is your favorite podcast.
Yeah. So you want to go to Critical Distance if you like good games and people who talk about those good games well. Otherwise, stick around here. We gotcha. Our other luminary, Carr, is a dentist, so his shout out is not for his Twitch stream, but for your mouth. And he asks that you brush your teeth twice a day. Most importantly, the time right before you go to bed. For RPG Book Club, I have been Sam Allman.
I'm David Bernard Hauk.
Okay.
And I'm Sam the Game Professor.
Toodaloo, folks.
Goodbye.